What's that?
Season is starting.
Season
People
starting.
are losing their
People are
minds.
losing their minds.
I have been seeing an influx of emails into my inbox about potential mental blocks, increased anxiety, panic attacks at gymnastics meets.
Everybody's freaking out, man.
I can't do this anymore. That's
God.
the famous line in the gym right now. I can't do this.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is going on. It could just be a lot of frustration this time of year.
It's not just nationwide. I think it's worldwide.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the NJA podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Grady, and I am here with my incredible co-host,
Dr. Ian Crider.
Rob Axelrod and our coughing president.
Okay. Whew. All right. So this weekend is the start of the NGA competitions, and we were discussing beforehand about all the things that coaches, parents, athletes can kind of run into during this time of the year. And we wanted to discuss some of it. So I know coaches, you might be feeling like everything's going wrong, like your athletes, even going back to the basics is getting really frustrating for you. Athletes, I know that you're probably needing more reassurance. You're feeling like your routines aren't connecting. And parents, if you are not a part of the gymnastics world, you might be assuming that inconsistency means that your athletes are losing their abilities. So this time can bring up a lot of frustration, anger, and lack of patience when it comes to a lot of us. So I just kind of wanted to check in with you guys to see what's been going on in your gyms. What are the things that you're seeing? Because I have been seeing an influx of emails into my inbox about potential mental blocks, increased anxiety, panic attacks at gymnastics meets. So I know that people are needing some help, and I figured we could talk about what we're experiencing and maybe some things that we could do to help them in this moment to lessen those nerves, bring in that patience again.
Everybody's freaking out, man. So anyway.
I just can't do it, Jim. I can't do this anymore. That's
Gosh.
the famous line in the gym right now. I can't do this. Yeah, you're right if you keep telling yourself that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I mean,
yeah, a lot of that stuff is going on, and I think look, that stuff happens. I know coaches that have amazing kids, and it happens in their gyms too, right? So
Mhm.
it happens.
It happens all gyms.
Nationwide. Just because you see a gym with like 3 kids that are going crazy and doing really good gymnastics this time of the year doesn't mean that their entire program is rocking it. Just, it hits kids differently. It depends on if they're repeating a level or if they moved up a level this year. Depends on what level they moved up and how big of a jump it was. There can just be a lot of frustration this time of year. And I think the important thing that I like to tell my gymnasts is that what they're doing right now is appropriate for the time of the year that they're in. So if they were doing perfect gymnastics right now, either they're doing a level that's way too easy, or we started way too early for their routine work. And so, if things are a little bit inconsistent right now, if things are a little bit, not going according to that gymnast plan, that's okay, because it's going according to my plan at least. Where, yeah, I wish everyone was hitting full bar routines and full beam routines with no falls and wobbles and all that, but it's probably not going to happen this time of the year because they just haven't had enough numbers to be that consistent yet. So they're doing the appropriate things for the time of the year that they're in.
I think it's not just nationwide. I think it's worldwide. We had our Liberty Cup back in December. Right? It was December 5, 6, 7. And it was international this year. We had Canada and Mexico came. And they, too, are friends of mine. And we were corresponding back and forth. And they were not ready. And they kept telling me, hey, my kids are coming, but they're not going to be ready. And you know what? It's early for everyone. It's especially early for us as well. And then, there was the National Judges Cup just happened. That was in California. And that qualifiers in November. I mean, that's like super early. So like that kid who was at that meet was doing level 7. That's the National Judges Cup. But now she's going to be competing either 8 or diamond. So that's a whole, like, not a totally different level, but that kid's kind of ready. But what did your club and what did you have for practice schedule over the break? There are lots of different factors. But then you also have like those phenom kids who just come in, you had 12 days off and, you're Chenko full. And you're like, well, where'd that come from? and like it never was a day off. And those are just, genetically, physically, those kids are just different than others. And so, yes, maybe 3 kids in this gym, in my gym, are doing great, and then, 85% of them are not doing great or just
Yeah.
inconsistent. So what I
Yeah.
try to
And that's,
teach those kids, and that's like normal, right? I mean,
yep, that's
like you said,
completely
I don't
normal.
need them to be ready to go right now because,
We're not trying to
nationals.
qualify for regionals or nationals yet.
No, it's the first meet or, okay, technically second meet of the season, or you could say first meet of the year, it's the new year, it's January. So you have to think about what is it exactly that you're doing. So if you're listening to this podcast and my suggestion, just my suggestion, my 2 cents, which is worthless, can't buy anything with 2 cents anymore. In fact, we're doing away with the penny, right? But uh, if your kids are at least going through the whole routine, regardless of falls, that means we're training. You could equate it to I wouldn't even say bodybuilding or powerlifting, just workout in general, like bench press, right? We've all bench press. You throw up a weight and you could do 15 of them or 20 of them or 30 of them, no problem. Okay, we'll put on, 215 pounds and I could get to 6 and I need help for the last 2. Well, that's kind of like your routine that has falls. Fall, get back up, finish. Fall again, get back up, finish. That's training. You're getting stronger. You're making your athlete stronger. Now, if that continues for 3 weeks, then you need to revamp your athletes and your routines and your complexity of your routines because maybe it's above their head and they're just not ready for it. But in general, the inconsistencies aren't bad. So my assignment for beam, let's say I'll use that as an example, is 5 beam routines. If you fall on the skill, get back up and finish, but write it down. What skills did I fall on? And then do that for all 5 routines, and then go back and look at which ones were the most. If it was the same fall all the time, well, let's go focus on that. We'll spend the last 15 minutes of our beam time and work on what we were struggling on. Or sometimes it's I do a different type of assignment where they'll fall on the skill. They have to get back up and repeat it. If they make it, that's good. We track that too, because in the end, we'll say, okay, I fell 3 times on my flight series. Okay, so it's 2 for each fall. So now you have 6 extra flight series that you have to make, and then I put a maximum on it so that I'm not overtraining them. And then other times, the other side to that is fall, don't finish, it doesn't count. And so, but then after 3 falls on the same spot, you have to finish that routine because if you don't ever do your whole routine, you'll never get in that routine shape that we're trying to build up to. Because soon, in the next couple of months, in March, we'll be having this podcast going, our kids are hitting every day. We're doing 3 in a rows or 2 in a rows and they're done. Boom, on to the next event. And we're training an upskill. And you'll see that all fall into place. And after almost 40 years of coaching, I can tell you that I get the same anxiety now and realize that it's anxiety and panic that they do, that, oh my gosh, my kids, they're going to look horrible. But I don't care that they look horrible because I don't want people saying, oh, you're such a terrible coach. His kids look like crap. They're falling all over the place. No, I don't want the kids to be discouraged in
Yeah.
having a terrible meet.
Yeah.
Everybody's entitled to a mistake where no one's perfect. Again, no one has ever gotten a perfect 40. Last year was the closest we ever had in college gymnastics. I forget who it was, but she went 10-0, 10-0, 10-0, and then 9-9-5 or something like that. But that was the closest ever, and I don't
Yeah.
consider that the same in college anyway as it is for
Right.
regular gymnastics. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
so be patient with your kids. I have learned to go home, decompress, come back the next day, start out as patient as possible, try to stay patient throughout my entire workouts. And if they're struggling, it's okay. And reassure them it's okay because we have
Yeah.
never failed yet. And that's what you have to go back
Yeah.
to. Have we ever had a failure season? And the answer is no.
Yeah. And yeah, and I like that you added the yet on there because that's really important. Like,
It will
they just
come
haven't gotten
together.
it yet. It'll
It'll
come.
Yeah.
it will come together. If
And
you're
I'm
following a process and you've created a process in your gym, which we've all talked about, our
mhm,
training regimens, our training processes, our periodizations, and all of those things. If you follow those every year and you've come up and you've tweaked them here and there, you're going to have that recipe for success. But don't forget your recipe for success in between, you're going to have hiccups. And the hiccups
yeah.
are okay.
Well, and I think the 2 things that I got from what you guys were saying that I think are so important is the calm that you bring into the gym, it goes throughout the gym. So if you're coming
Mhm.
in with that panic, that stress, that anxiety because season's starting and you're starting to notice that their routines aren't as consistent as you'd like them to be, and you start to have those feelings come up and then maybe going off the plan, those are those 2 things we don't want to happen. Ian and Rob tell you this all the time, stick with your plan. Like, yes, you can have these minor changes, but don't just drop everything and hammer routines because you're starting to panic. Remember to find your calm. And I think a big thing with coaches is making sure you're taking care of yourself during this time. And I think you guys forget to do that quite often when season's starting, is that you really focus on seeing what you can do for your athletes, which is amazing, but you can't do very much for them if you're not taking care of yourself. So making sure you're
Mhm.
getting that sleep, you're eating well, you're not like getting fast food for every meal. You're drinking your water, all of those things that we've always talked about and in our other episodes we've discussed, making sure that you have those things. And then some of the things that I've helped with when I'm working with gymnasts and I have them coming in panicking because of their first competition is a lot of them think that because they have their skills, that it should be super easy to put their routines together, and we have
Yeah.
to break that down. It's
No,
not. I was like,
totally different thing.
exactly. So I try to get them in problem solving mode to figure out how they can be successful at a practice. So like let's say they focus on their low bar routine and then they focus on their high bar routine and then try to connect it. Like I tell them to work on pieces, the ones that they're struggling with, and try to do what's before it, the piece they're struggling with, and what's after. So that's kind of how we break it down so that they can start to see the progress instead of it just being all of a problem.
Yeah, and the breaking down of the routine is great. We used to go from thirds to halves, and then but each time you have one of those, and this is really out there for those new coaches, I'm sure that most of you seasoned coaches already know that I call it a bridge or an overlap, right? So if you're going, say, mount, pendle kip, cast handstand, pack, kip handstand, pirouette, toe circle, jump up to the high bar, handstand. So that would be the first half. The handstand on the high bar is like where we're going next. But then for the second half, we're going to start from the pirouette. So kip, pirouette, toe circle. That's your bridge. So you're doing what's before, and then you're going to go to that handstand, and then finish your dismount or whatever may be
Mhm.
coming after.
Mhm.
So those are really important to do. Also, that's why I like with sometimes to do that beam assignment where if I follow that routine or that skill, get back up, repeat that skill, whether I make it or not, then continue because at least I'm going from where I was or trying to add that little overlap. A little
Mhm.
harder on floor and a little harder on vault. But I feel like those usually aren't your events that are the struggles. It's usually beam and bars where it's always putting the skills together for full routines.
Yeah.
Um,
One thing I like to reiterate with my gymnasts, or try and instill in them is like, hey, there are good mistakes and there are bad mistakes, right? And by bad mistakes, I mean like silly mistakes where you just do like a cast horizontal instead of a cast handstand. You're like, all right, well, that was just a silly mistake. A good mistake would be a level 8 pirouette. That pirouette's so early that they fall back forward again. You're like, oh man, so good, right? I will
greatest
high five
greatest
you
mistake
all day
ever.
long for that mistake,
Greatest
right?
mistake ever.
Yep.
And it's
Or,
even
that
cool
brand
it's
new.
even cool, that same situation, they go kip, handstand, pirouette, and they fall back down, and then they kip up and pirouette again and keep going,
Absolutely. Or, the level 6 that just got their cast handstand
and
and
they
they
fall
go
over.
kip, cast handstand, and fall over. I'm like,
Yeah,
wonderful. That's
high
so,
five.
like, I love it.
Yeah,
And so there are good mistakes and there are silly mistakes that we shouldn't make. And I always try and reiterate those good mistakes. It's like, hey, I want you to really go for it. And if you make a mistake going for it, I will never be mad about that or frustrated or anything. If you make a mistake and you pulled back, like we're gonna have a talk about, not that I'm upset at you, but
yeah,
just like,
yeah,
hey, there's a way that we could have done this better. And if you're gonna make a mistake, let's overdo it and make a mistake. Let's not underdo it and make a mistake. And that's kind of where we're at this time of season,
yeah,
where it's like, hey, let's really go for stuff. And if you make a mistake, that's okay, but let's go for it. And then later on in season is when I do more like what Rob was saying. I do more of the all right, hit two and move on. Right.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Versus right now, it's like, all right, we need five. Like,
Right,
muscle your
right.
way through it, work through it, fight, scratch, claw at the
Whatever you
beam,
gotta do,
whatever
yeah,
it
don't come
takes.
off the bar, stay on the bar,
Claw at
don't
the
take a
beam.
fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's another example would be like, a kid who's got a packed, beam routine, right? So,
Yeah.
they have this really cool mount, and, then they get up and they have like, flight series, a handspring layout, step out, and then it's like switch half, and then it's like a straddle or a split half, right? So another D jump, and then there's aerial, And then they're like, all right, I got through all those things. All I got left is my dismount, handspring full or handspring 1.5. And they're like, there's this big sigh of relief, and they're lining up to take their little prep before they do their dismount. And then they either face plant their dismount, or they don't get a good height and they're short, or they fall on the full, or they do a tuck and they don't do the full, or they do a full and they were supposed to do a 1.5 because they have relaxed at the end. The beam routine isn't over until your feet hit the ground on the landing mat,
Yep.
right? So
Yeah, you'll
you
see that same
will
thing
see
happen
that
on
same
like
thing
P
happen
bars
on
and pommels
bars.
for men too.
Right, for men's too. And
Yeah.
for bars, right? They have Maloney, pack, handstand, pirouette, toe handstand, kip handstand, blind change, full, double
And
tuck, and
face
they'll
planted
go
double tuck.
blind full and face planted double tuck because they're like, all right, I finished my routine. I just got the dismount left. And
Yeah.
so, and there are
They
some other
try and
things we
kick
can
it into
talk about.
autopilot.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so the
It's
focus isn't
exactly,
there.
the focus isn't there all the way at the end, and that's an okay mistake. But you want to talk about that, and there are ways to combat that as well. You're like, okay, so why not do a full bar routine, but don't do your dismount if you have like a double lay or a double tuck or it's something harder than a layout, right? So it makes a whole full bar routine go to a layout. And then, okay, we're going to go back and just train the dismount. So then we'll do kip handstand, kip handstand, kip handstand, kip squat on, kip handstand, giant double. So now we're tired going into the double, but we didn't have to do the release moves. There are ways to
Yep.
combat those, to help you with those. And we can always talk about that in another episode. But for now, just think about, I'm in that same boat. I did some extra practices. We have 85 kids on team or so. And we did 26 the day after Christmas, the 27th, 2 days after for practice. And out of 85, I got 6 that came in.
Yeah.
So, and
Yep.
again, it's also their vacation, but it's also the staff's vacation. But as a coach, I'm willing to not go on vacation, stay home or, not vacation or even just take time off and stay home and offer practices. So we had 3 practices in 12 days.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what's your expectation? So lower your expectation, assure your gymnast that it's going to be okay. And like Rebecca said, I'm not trying to make a freebie ad, but I have the Aura ring. A lot of us coaches in gymnastics have it. It's tracking ourselves. Like I'm telling you, you should track your
I want one.
athletes. You're tracking your athletes, but track yourself. What are you getting your good sleep? What was your daytime stress? This ring, and again, I'm not out there trying to get anything from Aura, but there are plenty of different
But
rings.
New
if they see
advertisement.
And
this
if they see
and
this,
they
they
want
go,
to
hey, Aura, brought to the APA podcast.
And if they want us to
brought you by
try
Aura.
them,
That's right.
I have some free fingers.
And so, and it's just important. It's, Rebecca said it, but you got to keep your nutrition up. I was talking to one of my coaches yesterday, and we were talking about, weight gain for us as adults, right? But the holiday season came and went, like, oh, I put on 8 pounds. I got to get it up. I didn't gain a pound because I didn't change my regimen for the holidays. It wasn't, oh, the holidays are here. It's a free for all. I'll just eat and drink whatever I want, and I'll stay up late and I'll go out and I'll party. We don't have to work and blah, blah, blah. Well, waking up similar to the same time, get a little bit of extra sleep, but your meal times should try to remain the same. Your water intake, whether you're at the gym, you're getting pumped up for water. At home, it's Christmas. I'm running around the house, all of a sudden it's 12 hours and I didn't have any water today. I
Right.
had 3 hot
Yeah.
Try to
chocolates,
keep
but
some
I
of
didn't
your
have any
routine
water
into
today.
3
it.
hot chocolates. Hey, that's
Yeah.
got water in it.
Yeah, I got some eggnog, but I had no
Little bit.
water then. And I'm big on supplements, but in your regimen, it's also going to help with making that transition to the beginning of the season post holidays.
Yeah. And coaches, if you're seeing a lot of anxiety and fear and just stress going on in your gyms, another thing I was thinking about is checking in with how you're communicating what's going on with them. So let's say that your athlete's not getting to their skills. Instead of saying something like, why can't you do this? What's going on? And being more abrasive, try to change. You're like, okay, well, what felt off? What do you think's going on for you? Like, what are you thinking about? I think sometimes taking a step back and reassessing how we ask those questions is really important because sometimes they don't know what they're thinking, like we've discussed before. And they might be thinking about, well, what if I don't do well at competition? What if I
Right.
don't get the scores I want? So if we can change what they're thinking right now in the stressful moment is one of the most important things. Make sure that they're thinking about their skills and
Mhm.
how to perform them versus the outcomes. And a lot of kids don't realize they're doing that, but they are thinking about those outcomes. So just
They're
kind of
totally
bring it
thinking
back
about the
in.
outcome.
Yeah.
It's similar to what we say in the skill, like a kid that's doing front handspring, front layout, front pike on floor. Like they're on the front pike before they finish the front handspring. So what's
Yes.
the outcome? They missed the front pike, right? Because they're so ahead of themselves. And it's the same. They're thinking about their outcomes of what's going to happen in competition. I can't do this in the gym. I'm and stress, right? And so they have to back it off. And you hit the nail on the head earlier, like Rebecca, for us coaches, tracking our sleep, tracking our food, tracking our water, tracking our anxiety. Well, we have to also self-evaluate ourselves. Like, how are we handling our athlete stress? Like, are we
Mhm.
contributing to
Yeah.
it? Are we
Yeah.
making it worse? And it's not easy to self-evaluate because sometimes you just don't know that you're like on edge. But
Hmm.
I do the same routine every day before I come in the gym. Whatever's going on in my life, I leave it outside the gym. Come in the gym and just do gym. And that's our motto in the gym. And we have our little lineup. It's a motivational lineup of a 2-minute speech. And then we ask them to just, and they go, do gymnastics. It's like, that's our thing. Just do gymnastics.
Nice. Yeah, I like calling it lowering the temperature of the gym, right? There's some times where
Hmm.
it's good when it kind of ramps up a little bit, but then you just need to watch it, right? Because there's that boiling point
Oh,
where
yeah.
all of a sudden excitement turns into anxiety and stress, and it usually happens on meet week. Like what was it, Monday? I walked in the gym and it's meet week this week, and the whole team is in on Mondays, and so everyone was, man, it was just
You could
loud,
just
right?
see it.
Well, that was more of an excitement
What was
thing,
an
right? And
excitement,
so
right?
yeah,
Mm.
especially because the
And
little
that's
kids
kinda
were in there,
yeah,
and
and
they
that's
kinda
kinda
like
cool.
meats.
Meat week, they love
Yeah,
yeah, they love the meats, and
yep,
you have to also reevaluate your situation with your athletes, like, the upper level athletes, they're more anxious or anxiety and don't even wanna go to the meet, like, "Well, why are you doing gymnastics?" Like, I
right,
the only
right.
reason that I do gymnastics because I wanna go to meets, that's the fun part.
Show
Competition
off
or, like,
your hard work.
show off your
Hmm.
hard work. I don't care if it wins or not, but you get to show off to yourself how that you can perform in a competition setting or a performance setting, and that's important too. And I think that, hate to say it, sound like the rest of the world, but social media has turned meet weeks into a complete disaster because who's got the coolest TikTok or Instagram with bells and whistles and lights and smokes and whistles are like, oh, it's meet week. Oh, and they got only, have you seen those? Like, I'm not big on like scrolling through and doom scrolling and all these things, but
I
you look at
actually
all these
haven't.
you look at these big schools, they have like a little reel of the athletes walking up to the camera and they're like, have their little, and then walk off like, oh, meet me. Yeah. Stop it. You're making it crazy for us in the gym.
Yeah, just get to work.
Get to work.
So yeah, so the beginning of the week was, man, everyone is excited and ready to go. But then towards the end of the week, especially the older girls, because the younger ones are kind of done with their practice this week. So now the older girls are kind of the only ones left in the gym, and now it's a little bit more stress driven. I'm like, all right, now let's calm down let's lower the temperature down in the gym. Let's calm everything down a little bit. And if you will just go out and compete like you practice, I'm good. Right.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
look, hey, it would be great if
I
they could better
Easier
than they
said than
practice,
done.
of
I
course.
always like to say
But
that, it's like the kid
yeah,
who, like, again, if you're tracking things and you're quantifying them, it's easier to improve quantifications because you see it. And that's become like maybe the last 10 years of my coaching career that it's important to try to have some kind of quantify of routines so you can see, if you the assignment was 5 beam routines and you're tracking them every day, and I was taking a picture of them every day for like a week, and you're like, see, well, this kid made 1 out of 5. Next day, she made 1 out of 5. Next day, she made 1 out of 5.
then
Not
they miss
not
it at the
not
meet
that
and
I'm
get
doing
upset,
20
and you go,
not that I'm
"Well,
doing 20 beam routines a week, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
if it's 3 or it's 5 or it's whatever your assignment is. So, let's say the total for the week was, 15, and they made 3. Okay. Don't ask me, I didn't make the math team, so, but what's the percentage there? Dr. Ian, go.
no, they kicked me out of
Miss
math."
Rebecca, 3 out of 15. Again, didn't
Are
make the
we?
math team, making
This is.
myself look pretty stupid.
20.
What'd
Hey
you
Siri
calculate?
hey Siri, what's the percentage of 3 out of 15?
3 divided by 15 is 0.2.
So 20%. Yes.
3%.
So there you go.
Good
Make sure
job,
that this
Ian.
doesn't come out that way in our podcast. But so, okay, so 3 out of 15.
We have an athlete in here.
I'll just this. I'll say this. So I didn't make the math team, but if you hit 3 routines and your total for the week of beam routines was 15, you're at a 20%. So when you get to the competition, your percentages are going to go down because it's a different equipment. It's a different time of the day. It could be on a different day that you're not even used to doing gymnastics. It could be on a Sunday. So your odds are against you to make that beam routine. Now, if you go in and you're making 15 out of 15 beam routines and you get there, all right, so that's 100% that you hit, but maybe your odds are 90% that you hit. And I feel bad for the kid who misses at a meet who had such success throughout the week prior to getting ready for the meet. I feel terrible because all of your hard work and then you fell. That can happen. But at least if you're going off percentages, your expectations don't have such high expectations. If you put your expectation here, you have nothing to do but let yourself down. Lower the bar. Be
I
happy
love
with
that you
what
said
you
it.
had.
I just had a kid come to session and she was saying that like I always try to do goals with them. What would they like to see at competition? And not scores. Like I always erase that one right away. I'm like, these aren't the goals I'm talking about. I'm talking about like maybe mental performance or something. And she was like, I don't want to fall on beam and I don't want to fall on bars. And I was like, well, how can we change that? Because if we talk about not wanting to fall, what do we think about? And she's like, oh, I kind of think about falling. And I was like, oh, yeah, see, we don't want to do that. And I go, so, but how can we change that? And she's like, well, if I think about my cue words for the skills that I'm struggling with on that event, maybe that would be better. And I was like,
Yeah.
there you go. I go, so that's a great goal. And for athletes listening, you want to go in with goals that are specific. So let's say you don't want to fall. We don't want to think about that. We want to think about, well, what do I need to think about for this skill on this event that I'm worried about so I don't fall? So, what are your cue
Mhm.
words? What have your coaches been telling you? What corrections? You want to think of those things, and that's going to help you. We want to have our focus on the skills, not on those outcomes. Like, I want to get a 9.5 because if you don't get a 9.5, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, that's
And then,
that's the hardest thing is you want a
yeah,
number and you
we
can't use
don't
this score as a quantification.
exactly. And then the other thing I will tell you that when you get done with the event, I want you to find something that you did well before you move to the next one. Cause like let's say you fall on bars, that's gonna travel with you the whole competition. Even though that happened, other things went well. Okay. So we have to try to leave that event at that event, find
Mhm.
something you did well in that routine and kind of start over. And it's hard
Yeah.
to do, but
I like that you
with
brought that
practice it
up.
gets easier.
Yeah, I like that you brought that up. At the end of practice, we try to line them up too and just talk about anything that needs to be known for the next day, or if I'm not gonna see them and I'm heading up to the meet the day before and they still have a practice and I'll be already at the meet, those type of things. We always talk about, there's one or two kids that are like kind of like teary-eyed in lineup at the end of the night. And I'm like, what do why would you let those two rails that are over there on those two chrome pipes make you cry? Right. So
Right.
if that's was your last event of the night and those little two rails over there make you cry, forget them. Let's talk about the 50 things that you did in the gym that went well, not the one thing that
Exactly.
didn't go well. If you're focused on the one thing that didn't go well, that's where you're going to be heads at tomorrow. And
Hmm.
I won't name names or name coaches, but in 1988 at the Olympics, a coach walked up to an athlete at the Olympics and said, whatever you do, don't fall. Guess what that athlete did? They fell.
Probably
And
fell
in
on
and
everything.
it and in 19 it was
Yeah.
it
Probably
was
fell
a
4
specific
times.
event, and it's a specific event, I'm leaving it out so that nobody could go figure out who it is, so I don't wanna, like, name names,
Yeah.
and so then the next time that same athlete went back in '92 and on that same event, and the particular coach said, "Have a great routine." That was the last thing they said, and that person got the gold on that event, so that was really great. So,
Yeah.
what you say to
Mindset
them,
matters.
mindset
Yep.
matters. There you go.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Like I had a girl at our first kind of mock-ish meet. It technically had judges, but it was kind of more of a fun meet. And she just had kind of had a freak out on beam, and then it carried over to floor. And then she came over to. I was coaching another group at the same time, but I went over there for vault to be with them on vault. And she came in and had that same attitude. I was like, "Whoa, stop right now! Like, what are you thinking about?" I was like, "Are you thinking about beam and floor? Or are you thinking about vault right now?" She's like. And you could just tell she's like in full panic
Panic.
mode. I was like, all right, take a breath, think about what you're doing. Let's get vault done now. And
Mhm.
it was a little bit longer conversation than that, but that was kind of the gist of it. And then she had an awesome vault.
Yeah.
And so it's just that you've got to get their minds in the right headspace so that way they can perform like they need to perform.
Yeah, we
And
we
that's
do
the
the
tricky
same
thing.
same thing in here in the gym, similar, and I just call it turning the page. I'm like, hey, that was this page, and now we're turning it to the next page because this one
Hmm.
Mhm.
is already finished for the day. And we do that often. And another thing to be mindful of with your athletes is if they're struggling on one event, and that's the only struggle they're having on is that one event. When they're in school, they're thinking about that event. When they're at home, they're thinking about that event. When they get to the gym they have 3 events because it's the last event in the day, and, they're gonna struggle for the other 3 events worried about the last event of the day. So how do you overcome that? And if you figure that out, you let me know.
That's right. We'll invite.
Well, I will say that as a coach, you can't change that. We have to teach them to do that. So that at least relieves some
Right,
pressure for
and
you.
as a coach, you can help them with
Yeah.
that.
You
You
definitely
can
can
nip
help
it
them
in
with
the
that.
bud when they come in and be like, you could tell by the look on their face,
Yeah. If
you
you
know,
know
or
your kid's
just
well
Where's
enough,
your
for
mind
sure.
ghost
today?
white.
Yeah.
They during your lineup, if you so choose to do a lineup, "So, you thinking about that event that we have to go to at the end of practice today?" "Yeah, okay, alright, we have 3
Mhm.
events before that, so let's make it a deal, we're not gonna talk about that event till we get to that event, and so we can do beautiful 3 events, and then, right, we'll have a crappy last event."
I
Goodness.
guess the last thing, do we have any quick advice for parents? Because I know that we have lots of parents listening. That's who I get my emails from, are
That's a
very
whole 'nother
concerned,
podcast.
loving. I know, and we'll come back to it, but I think we could probably
Yeah.
give them one thing because I know a lot of parents are asking a lot of questions like, "Oh, are you nervous? How are you feeling?" And instead of getting into those questions, just reminding them that they've been working really hard, that you're really excited to watch them perform. Parents, I know you want to fix everything for your children and you don't want them to go into this competition feeling all that stress and panic, but
Yeah.
just be their support. And the biggest thing I think you can do is make sure that they're prepared for competition. You are that person who can encourage them to pack their bag the night before, make sure they
Right,
have healthy snacks, get
right.
them on time. So you can at least minimize the stress and pressure in that aspect of their life. And then you can just be their support and tell them you're there to cheer them on.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, you said you went for a run yesterday, Miss
Yeah.
Rebecca, right?
Yeah.
So how many days off did you take before that run?
Wait, what do you mean?
Like, how many days? Like, normally you run every day or you have
Oh,
a
no.
schedule. Was your schedule
I,
disrupted?
well, I schedule it in,
But was
but
your schedule disrupted before this last run? Did you wind up, like, sick and you took a few days off and you missed a run here or you missed a run there or it was the holidays or
so, no, I did not take off the run, I did it, and I died when I
o
got done
okay,
running.
but is that because the days prior to it, your schedule was disrupted and it wasn't the same? So my point is this, is that don't forget that if you're a parent and you have an exercise regimen that had been disrupted during the holidays with travel and family and cooking and preparing and gifts and parties and whatever. And then you're like, wow, I haven't been to the gym in 5 days. When you go back to the gym on that after 5 day break, it's not going to be the same. So your athletes, your
No.
children are not going to be the same either. So don't have such a high expectation on the first meet of the season back from the holiday break. This way,
Mm,
you're not asking these kids like, "I spend a lot of money. We paid for a competition. We're traveling competition. We're getting a hotel room." You're just adding stress to your athlete or your daughter or
mhm.
your son, whatever, person that's, training, boys or women's gymnastics. But just back it down. You could put a little added stress on after the season gets rolling.
Right. Yeah. And 99% of athletes are not going to respond better to added stress. Right. But you get some oddballs out there that they need some stress to perform well or something. But for the most
Rob.
part,
Yeah, they perform well under stress.
yeah, most athletes do much better when they're kind of calm, cool, collected, and excited, right? And so if we
Yes.
can have healthy excitement, and I always say like nervousness just means that you care about it. If you weren't nervous, then something's wrong, right? If you're not nervous about a meet, it means you probably don't care about it. And so that's maybe not the right thing. So nervousness is okay, but we turn that nervousness into excitement instead of stress. So just working on getting your gymnast excited is good, but yeah, prepared, excited, and be a cheerleader, and we're good to go with parents.
You get to show off.
Yeah,
And I'm thinking the overall theme that we all of us discussed is like lowering that temperature. Coaches, parents, just take a step back, pay attention to how you're speaking. Remember, we lower ours, the kids lower theirs. So
Bring your food temperature gauge with you.
yeah, yeah,
the
exactly.
meat thermometer.
The meat, the MEET thermometer.
MEET thermometers.
That was
Correct.
good.
That's why I was
Nice
waiting
one.
for somebody to catch on. That's
Yep,
why I
I'm
said
ready.
food. I didn't say
Totally
money.
wasn't me. It's all you in there.
You got it.
All right. So, parents, coaches, athletes, if there is something that you are struggling with specifically about entering meet season that you feel like I don't know how to navigate this, send us questions, or if you have great ideas to add to what we've been saying, please send that to us too. You can contact us on any of the platforms. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with anyone who could benefit from it. And until next time, stay happy, healthy, and high performing.